I'm going to ask we stand. I'll have a brief invocation and then the Pledge of Allegiance. May we bow in an attitude of prayer. Gracious Heavenly Father, we say thank you for this day. Thank you for the opportunity to be present. Lord, direct us and guide us as we enter into a new year, new beginnings, the challenges and changes ahead for us. We pray that we would work hard, diligent, respectful of each other, and for the betterment of our community. Lord, lead, guide, and direct us. Have mercy upon us, I pray in thy name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and good morning again. With that, I'll call our January 9th, 2024 Board of County Commissioners meeting to order. And at this point, I'll ask for approval of the minutes for December the 12th, 2023.
Motion to approve for December 12th, 2023 minutes.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second on the floor.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much. Moving right into Commissioners' reports and comments. Mr. Wagner, would you like to go first?
Sure. Morning. Want to welcome everybody back from their vacation. You've been back for almost a week anyway, but we haven't, so we're back. I don't know if that's good or bad, but we're back. I do want to thank everybody that had to work over their vacation. I know road crews worked some, dispatch work, 911 dispatch work, first responders, highway, everybody that had to work. I want to thank them for being there over the holidays because everybody didn't get off like some of us did. So and I welcome them, and really appreciate everything they do for us. I think that's about it for me. I just show my appreciation for everybody that did work over the holidays.
Thank you. Mr. Kiefer, good morning.
Good morning. Just echo Commissioner Wagner's comments there. Thanks to everyone who worked over the holidays and when we had our snow event last weekend. This past weekend, I suppose. Thanks for taking care of our roads and those other individuals who had to get to work on a Saturday or do something on a Saturday, get the roads clear and safe for them as well. Just wanted to share one little fact, and this is all I have. Banks are required to report to the FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, every year a listing of deposits that they have by branch location, by zip code, by county, by state, and it's called the FDIC Summary of Deposits. It's public information. And the summary deposits for 2023 shows that in our community, in Washington County, deposits countywide at banks, does not include credit unions, decreased by $120 million. And that is the first time that deposits have increased in our community for about a decade during the Great Recession. And I think that's significant. I think that to understand that, and was that money stimulus? I'm sure some of it was. Or is it a sign of inflation? And, our consumers, our citizens' expenses are higher than before. I'm sure that was. I just want us to keep that in mind as we go through and consider what our own tax policy may be. First-time deposits have decreased in our community since the Great Recession. I think that's significant. So that's all I have.
Good. Thank you. Commissioner Harvey?
Yes, I agree with what Randy and Wayne said about the great work by our staff, and it's good to be back and looking forward to this year, working with everyone. Over the last week, just a couple of items to mention. Our commissions and boards have been meeting and had a good meeting with the Veterans Commission as they're looking forward to developing some initiatives. They'll be in to talk to the county sometime in the near future about what they're doing. Historical Commission had their meeting yesterday, and they're looking at having their award ceremony of the Fry Award on May 15th. So, you know, any of the commissioners that can be there on May 15th, that would be greatly appreciated. And then had a very productive meeting with the elder group. And, you know, they work very well in the community, and, you know, they delivered almost 8,000 meals, or prepared almost 8,000 meals for a subset of our community that, you know, is in need of support in many different ways. And had a very productive session with them, going over plans and initiatives and, you know, looking at fundraisers over this year as they seek to expand the delivery of meals and other support to people that are less fortunate in our community. And I look forward to working with them more in the future. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice
Sir,
President Klein?
Commissioner Barb. Again, I'd like to thank all of our employees for a great year in 2023, and also thank them for the snow removal during this past snowstorm. And just an overall thanks to all of our employees, our first responders, for all that they do for us and the citizens. Highlight of my time off, sort of, was the Donut Drop in Hagerstown, a very nice family-friendly event. I saw Mr. Nicewarner there. We got a picture together, but as I looked around, I saw family and kids and grandpas and grandmas all hanging around, having a good time, waiting for that donut to drop into that AC&T coffee cup. So thanks to Crumpy's and AC&T in Hagerstown for helping that support for that New Year's Eve tradition. I also had the opportunity to do a training exercise with a firefighter recruit class number 5. I actually put on the gear, went into a burn building, felt the 800 to 1,000 degree heat in a smoke-filled room. I wasn't in very long, but I also got to learn how important that thermal imaging device and equipment that we supply them are necessary, not just to save the lives of others, but to help keep our volunteers, our first responders, all of them safe. So I thank them for allowing me to participate in that. And last night, I had the honor and the privilege of installing the officers at the Funkstown Volunteer Fire Company. I want to thank all the officers who are putting their time out and all the volunteers over there to help protect our community. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Klein.
Thank you.
Good morning again, everyone. Good to be back. Again, I also would like to thank staff who have worked through the holidays. One of the things that I've always found interesting with local government, they never have the opportunity to take a vacation or a break. There's always activities and functions that must go on, and our citizens in our community deserve constant access to local government. And so in our county, our municipalities, there's always activity and hard work going on, even on holidays and what otherwise might be considered vacations. So again, hats off to them, and thank you so very much. One of the highlights, I guess, over the holidays, aside from family and friends, for me is near and dear, is the Salvation Army, and I see the city are here today, and we have a joint meeting very shortly, and I'd like to thank the city. We challenged each other to help ring the bell this year, and our local Salvation Army did better than expected, I think, and it's down from previous years, but it was a little better, and I think between county and city help, ringing the bell and the volunteerism, all those funds that were raised go back into this community to much needed services. So thank you very much. And next year, I'd like to go ahead and throw a challenge out early that maybe even some of the municipalities could get their staff to help out and get foster more volunteers for ringing the bell. The other thing I have on my agenda and concern is tomorrow is a new legislative 90-day session starts in Annapolis. Keep our delegation in all seriousness in our prayers. And the folks in Annapolis go back to the hard work for 90 days and looking out for our local interest and our statewide interest. And they do have some major initiatives and some major challenges ahead of them. So we keep them very close to us particularly during this 90-day session. I know some of us may be traveling to Annapolis for opening ceremonies and activities on Wednesday, and the best to those that are doing that, and safe travels to and from Annapolis. So, with that, I'll move into staff comments.
Could
and-
I add
Yes,
one more
sure.
thing? We have some legislative items, the initiatives. Would it be okay that we send a letter reinforcing all of our initiatives to our delegation? Would we need a consensus to do that, or everybody in support of that?
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Staff comments, first up, Chip Rose. Good morning, Chip.
Good morning.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Happy New Year to those I haven't seen before today. Good to see you all again. Chip Rose, Director of Human Resources. I have two relatively straightforward items for you this morning. We had two Assistant County Attorney positions that were approved in closed session on November 12th, 2023, the last time we all got together. They were both grade 17, step 5. So I'm coming back to you this morning asking for approval to hire Rosalinda Pascal at a salary of $87,464 effective January the 10th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second on the floor. All in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I'm a no. Just to explain, I'll be voting no on both attorneys. And last time we've had to hire 2 additional county attorneys, the last 2 occasions I voted no. I just don't feel that we need to add that additional staff in that part of county government. But I will say their credentials they attended amazing colleges, and I think they're very intelligent people, but I just don't feel that we need that in county government.
I'll just make a comment then. You know, I've looked at this closely. I've been involved in government for a long time. Taking a look at the amount of legal reviews and the amount of issues that intersect with our legal office, it's just prudent for us, given the workflow and the capacity issues, you know, the bandwidth that, you know, is strained, that we bring on, you know, the additional staff. It's good to have some in-house support to allow us to be more agile in responding to our requirements. And I do know that we do contract out some of our work to specialized lawyers, right? Correct. But, you know, and that's for a real need, but, you know, I see a definite need, and I am very conservative about, you know, the expense of funds. But, you know, this is an area that I identified early on as an area that needed to be buttressed, and I fully support this.
Yeah, and I'd reinforce that by saying, I know that from dealing with attorneys and other walks of life I have, is attorneys specialize in things, and sometimes one attorney can't specialize in everything. I mean, it could be real estate, it could be litigation, just numerous. It's like any other job in the world today. They have specialties, and I think that broadens our. Hopefully, we can cut down on, with 2 more attorneys, we can cut down on some of the outside contracting, but it depends on what the circumstance is. Sometimes you just need a special attorney specializing.
I'm fine.
Okay. All in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
4-1. Next item.
Thank you for the comments. Second assistant attorney is, we're requesting approval to hire Aaron Weiss, salary of $87,464. Hire date to be determined. He's still completing his pre-employment steps, but he'll be ready in the next week.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Motion and second on the floor. All in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll be no for the same reason. I would just like to add that we added an additional attorney under the sheriff's department. I see our sheriff here. This was under the previous sheriff. And that was an effort that we made to try and specialize some specialties in law, but I'll be a no also.
4-1. Okay.
That's all I have this morning. Thank you.
Thanks, Chip.
Thank you, Chip.
Next item, Danielle Weaver. Good morning, Danielle.
Good morning, Commissioners. Danielle Weaver, Director of Public Relations and Marketing. I'm coming before you today to introduce the ad that we've created for the Hagerstown Boxcar Stadium. You can see it's the top image. I'm hoping is it in front of you?
It is
Okay,
now.
perfect. And the top image is the ad that we would be using, and then the bottom image is just an example to show you that most ads that go on baseball stadiums or in stadiums in general are going to be seen from a distance, so they need to be simple, and they're typically just a logo and a website. So we do anticipate doing a backslash with a direct link to something, so it could be washco-md.net/boxcars. That way we can track the ad space itself over the next couple years. So with your approval, we would like to put this ad at the stadium.
Motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good job. Next up, Greg Cartret. Good morning, Greg.
Good morning, Commissioners. Greg Cartret, Director of Permits and Inspections and Code Official. It is my honor this morning, back in December, this past December, the Maryland Building Official Association had their annual ceremony and awards presentation. And our very own Dave Kearns was awarded the Inspector of the Year Award for the entire state of Maryland. And so I just wanted to bring him to the Commissioners and present him before the board.
Very good. You want to say anything?
Congratulations to you.
Congratulations, Dave.
Okay. You want to say anything, Dave?
No, I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to help citizens, so it's been a great ride, so thank you.
Very good. So, we have a presentation to make.
Greg, come on over.
You all dressed up, you might as well get up there.
You want to say anything? Well, Dave, on behalf of my comrades and county commissioners, we present this certificate of recognition to Dave Kearns. The Board of County Commissioners of Washington County would like to recognize Dave Kearns for being named Inspector of the Year for Washington County, but the state of Maryland. We thank you for your service and dedication to the citizens of Washington County. Congratulations, Dave, on this well-deserved honor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
We get
can I have all the
everybody else?
commissioners come up front?
Thank you.
All righty, ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, thank you.
Michelle Gordon, County Administrator. I attended several departmental Christmas luncheons over the holidays and enjoyed getting to know our employees and throughout the county. I also attended the Maryland Symphony Orchestra's Christmas Sing-Along Special at the Maryland Theater. It was good to see how well attended this concert was. I also attended several board and committee meetings over the last few weeks as well. We weathered our first winter storm of the 23-24 season over the weekend, and I'd like to recognize our Highways Department and our public safety personnel for ensuring that roads were cleared and for putting the safety of our residents as their top priority. I'd also like to recognize Tanner Renner of the Highways Department. I spent 5 hours on Saturday riding along with him as he plowed roads in the South County section, and he did an excellent job. Many of our residents, including me, received their triennial notice of reassessment from the Maryland State Department of Assessments and Taxation. My reassessment notice showed a 45% increase in the market value of my home, and I just want to remind residents that in Maryland, your increased assessment is phased in over a 3-year period for your principal residents, and the bottom of your notice should show those phased-in figures for you. For residents whose property is their principal residence, the state of Maryland phases in that new assessed value at no more than 10% per year for your state tax portion, and in 2007, Washington County and municipalities lowered that phased-in percentage for their local portions of your tax bill to no more than 5% per year. Your property must be designated with the homestead property tax credit. Your assessment notice should indicate if you are approved for the homestead property tax credit. If you are eligible but did not receive the homestead credit, please contact the Maryland State Department of Assessment and Taxation at 301-791-3050 or visit their website at www.dat.state.md.us. Additionally, their office is located in the square in downtown Hagerstown. The state also has several other types of property tax credits available to homeowners that are often based on age requirements and/or certain income qualifications, and SDAT will be able to assist residents with any questions they may have regarding eligibility for those other types of property tax credits.
Just to clarify for everybody, and I've got numerous calls, that the assessments are done by the state.
That's correct. The Maryland State Department of Assessments and Taxation handles that. We have no input whatsoever.
And if people want to call and find out what their options are for appeals or homestead or whatever, who would they call? Tax and Assessment Office here locally, or?
Yes, they can call 301-791-3050. Later today, we will be hosting a ribbon-cutting ceremony for the opening of Professional Boulevard. This project included the construction of a bridge from Professional Court over Antietam Creek and connects Professional Boulevard to Yale Drive and Robinwood Drive. This project reduces emergency service travel time and improves traffic operations and safety of our residents. Lastly, county officials, along with representatives from various other community groups, will be attending the Washington County Legislative Day in Annapolis on January the 23rd. Because of this, we will not meet on January the 23rd, and our next meeting is scheduled for January the 30th. On January 30th, we will also hold an evening meeting at 6 p.m. with the town of Morgansville. That's everything I have.
Thank you, Michelle. Next is citizens' participation. We do have a few new adjustments for this time in our county commissioner meeting. You might notice a time clock here in the front, and we will be strictly enforcing the time limit in participation of citizens' participation. So this is an opportunity for citizens to comment about an issue or issues of county, and let me say that again, of county practices and interests. This is not an interactive dialogue or question and answer session. It is solely time to hear citizens' comments. So again, starting out a new year and some strict guidelines, we have a electronic clock, and we'll be monitoring the length of time of everyone's comments, and being in light of our very, very busy schedule. So with that, I'm going to ask Anyone that would like to make citizens' comments this morning, please come forward. And we need your name and address for the record, please.
Did you want me to sit
Yes,
down?
yeah, please.
My name is Kathy Stumpf, 14702 Mountain Road, Hancock, Maryland, 21750. And as some of you are aware, the reason I'm here today is because of protection of Sidling Hill Mountain and the view shed and protection of private property in Washington County. As some of you are aware, in 2013, citizens of western Washington County were caught off guard by an attempt by the DNR to put miles of ORV trails all over Sidling Hill Mountain, which the U.S. Geological Survey has called the geological wonder of the northeastern United States. The Interstate 68 Sidling Hill Cut, I'm sure all you have seen it, has also been labeled the gateway to western Maryland. Over 500 people in 2013 filled the Hancock Town Hall to protest the trails. In addition, there were many civic and environmental groups that were in opposition as well, including the Washington County Convention and Visitors Bureau, the Hancock Chamber of Commerce, Hancock Town Council, the Allegheny County Board of Commissioners, the Maryland Ornithological Society, the Sierra Club, and the Maryland Native Plant Society, just to name a few. The Washington County Commissioners at that time also came alongside of us and voiced their opposition. At the end of that 1.5-year battle, the DNR withdrew its plans to put trails on the mountain. Unfortunately, the efforts to negatively affect this area have continued. Just last fall, at the last minute, the citizens found out about an impending effort by a company in Las Vegas to put a solar field on the east side of Sidling Hill Cut along Scenic 40 at Woodmont Road. The people rose up again and opposed this development, and because of this and the prime agricultural soil classification, the solar field was defeated. I have an article that I'll share with you all that was in the Epic Times recently that tells of a broadened effort across the United States that is trying to create eminent domain of private property for expanded use. This is very concerning for other uses than just highways going through that actually affected our family farm. We would like to request that you, as our elected representatives, do your part to add an extra layer of protection in the comprehensive plan of 2040 that would keep this iconic area in its natural state, restricting any recreational, commercial, residential, and industrial uses that bring encroaching activity to impact it forever. Because this is an iconic mountain. Everybody knows Sidling Hill Mountain and the cut that goes through it. But just wanted to ask that you all do your part, please, to protect this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You're going to need a copy of that for the records. Okay, next up.
Good morning, County Commissioner Stephanie Phillips, Summit Avenue, Hagerstown. I came out this morning for the sole purpose to show support and to thank you. I always try to thank you before I give public comments, but 3 minutes isn't a lot of time. But I came out today to thank you, especially for inviting the city to join you at the beginning of the year. You know, you have a lot of challenges and a lot of problems that you have to deal with on a regular basis, and a lot of them are really hard. They don't have any easy, short, quick fix answers, and it's a lot of work and a lot of effort. And I have to say, I go to like 6 different meetings in 3 different states as a retiree, and this is the first time I've seen a joint effort of city and county. And that gives me a lot of hope for the future, that if you're working together like this, you'll be able to accomplish more. So thank you very much, and I want to give you a big round of applause and thank you for your service.
Okay, anyone else? Citizens' participation? Hearing none, thank you very much. Next on the agenda is our joint meeting with the mayor and council of the city of Hagerstown. And I'm going to invite the mayor and city administrator and city council to come forward. And I think there's name tags on the seats, and Michelle, do you want to say anything first, or?
I'd just like to welcome the mayor and council, as well as Scott Nicewarner and all of the staff that he's brought from the city of Hagerstown to this joint meeting. We did provide you with some socks, county socks, for you to take back with you, because that's, everybody loves our socks. And I'll just open it up to Scott Nicewarner at this point.
Actually, Mayor, go ahead.
So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for meeting with us. And then also, thank you for my council and the city administrator for being here as well, and as well as the staff in the back. I just wanted to kind of meet with you to talk about some highlights of 2023 that absolutely required the collaboration of the county as well. And so one is the field house, the groundbreaking of that, and with it due to open at in the fourth quarter of 2024. Another thing is the parking deck. That is coming up very nicely. I'm sure you guys are watching it like we're watching a stadium. Also, the Hagerstown Police Department drone program, which was very groundbreaking. We've been hearing across the state that our police department has technology that other police departments wish they had. And so we're very proud of that, very proud of how we kind of was innovative with the police department in order to approve some funding to get the drones up and running. Also, increase of downtown events and participation of the community. Not sure if you've seen, but we gave a key to the city to LA Night, which was only 4 days in planning that, and it brought out hundreds of people. I think about what would have happened if Councilmember Schindler would have worked on that for about 3 weeks, and how much tourism it could have brought into the city to honor someone who is doing amazing things. Also, the improvements to Wheaton Park. Over the summer, there was a concert in Wheaton Park. You could see community kind of up on Prospect Street enjoying the music that was happening, as well as a lot of community out in the street. And that was a collaborative project with Horizon Goodwill. Our neighborhoods planning grant, which is HUD. HUD awarded the maximum amount of $500,000 to support the development of comprehensive neighborhood transformation plan to include Frederick Manor, Douglas Court, Parkside Homes, and the surrounding neighborhoods. And that's in partnership with Hagerstown City Council. That's who we are. But that's in partnership with Hagerstown Housing Authority. Also, partnership with Washington County Economic Development and the completion and progress projects, enhancing the jobs and footprint of commercial activity in the city and county. And also increase in residential construction for both single-family and multifamily housing units through 2023. And I just want to say that we are growing very quickly in this county, one of the most fastest growing counties, that it's very important that we continue to work collaboratively together. When one wins, we all win. And so I just wanted to share those highlights with you that we're very proud of. And also want to take some moments to visit any comments or concern in reference to the presentation that was made at R.C. Wilson Water Treatment Plant. And I know that was some time ago, but wanted to be able to circle back to that.
Council members?
I said earlier in my comments about the donut drop night. That was a fun night. You and I were up on stage shooting confetti, but the best part about it, you saw the community part. I saw kids running around, pappies and grandmas and everybody. So it's a nice tradition that's been established there. So thanks for helping with that.
I think it's important that you shared that your confetti was about a minute late.
I was trying to take pictures and shoot confetti, and I couldn't do both.
It was a very fun time. And very, very happy to see the growth that is happening in the city, as well as the feeling of safety, right? Like, when I first came into office as a city council person, there wasn't a feeling of safety downtown, and we're not hearing that as much from the people that I talk to when I'm on the streets every day. There's a feeling of safety. And I have to thank the Hagerstown Police Department, as well as our fire department, our staff for doing that.
I'd like to add, too, the continued effort to the realignment and the focus on the cultural trail over through the park area and the new memorial there at Park Circle, and it's just bringing everything together through that whole community. So your staff's doing a fantastic job with keeping up with that and the realignment, and I assume maybe even a rededication to that whole trail when it's finally,
All done.
all done. Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Mayor, if we could, Nancy is here. It may be informational to the commissioners to have Nancy explain some of the projects that are going on as far as the entire water system that affects county and city customers.
Absolutely.
Good morning.
Morning.
I just put together a brief list, and it's kind of a recap of some of the things we discussed at R.C. Wilson at the previous meeting, as well as the meeting with the Hagerstown Committee, Greater Hagerstown Committee. One of our most important projects that will be kicking off in late FY24 or early FY25 is the first phase of our water transmission mains, which will put the first section of a parallel 36-inch main in from the Wilson plant out to Fenton Avenue. We estimate that the first phase of that is going to be $8 to $10 million. Of course, the entire project we know is going to be $40+ million. But that will allow us to get that first 36-inch transmission main going. Another project that's on our radar screen is the MAC tank, and this is the city-owned tank. And of course, this provides some fire protection as well as system pressure to the areas to the north, the airport area, what we refer to as our Zone 3. That project is estimated to be in the $4 million price range. That tank was originally built in around 1965. And like I said, this tank is in the county and serves solely county customers. We have our Zone 5 study that will be underway shortly. It'll be completed within the next 12 months. That's $1 million study, but we anticipate that the improvements that will result from that study will be approximately $20 million, maybe higher. It'll include Pump Station 6, which is on Jefferson, and it'll also include the Chewsville PRV. We'll have to look at rezoning the base zone and Zone 1, which is an expensive endeavor. One of the most exciting projects that we have is we're working with MDE and DNR, looking at the Antietam as a new raw water source, a new intake for the city of Hagerstown, and a water plant. That water plant then would be located in town. We haven't picked the site exactly yet, but we want to be out of the floodplain, makes constructing it a whole lot easier. We would anticipate that that project would be, if all of the approvals come through, upwards of $40 million for the water portion of it. There's also a wastewater portion that would go with that, because when you make drinking water, you create a wastewater. The wastewater plant would need to be upgraded to handle the processed wastewater from the drinking water plant, and we estimate that that would probably be in the $10 million price range. So, but very excited about the potential of that new source. We have not abandoned Edgemont. Edgemont is just on hold while we complete this study to determine the viability of it. The last one I'm going to mention is the R.C. Wilson water plant upgrades. This would be to upgrade the hydraulic capacity and restore the plant to a 20 MGD plant. Because of the change in regulations since the 1930s and again in the 70s, that plant cannot produce 20 MGD. We just do not have the hydraulic capacity at the plant to do that with the change in regulations. Of course, there's new regulations out there, the PFAS, the forever chemicals, that will likely have to be addressed as part of that upgrade. The price tag we have on that project is about $60 million. Would like to mention 3 wastewater projects. Mayor and council gave staff the nod of approval to move forward with a $20 million upgrade to our wastewater treatment plant. We're working with Black & Veatch right now on a proposal for that design. That will replace aging equipment, but it'll also upgrade the nutrient treatment to, I'm going to say, the best available technology, especially as it pertains to phosphorus. We're also working on the Pump Station 33 project to the east, and Pump Station 13 is also being worked on, and of course that is to the west. We have a lot of irons in the fire. I should say that the Pump Station 33, we're looking at a $5 million investment and closer to $3.5 million investment for Pump Station 13. So we're busy. We have a very aggressive CIP. And with that,
Nancy, could you just refresh our memory on, right now, what is the capacity for water, demand for water, and what's your future expectations that you're going to need for water?
yeah, currently, as you know, I said the Wilson plant is a 20 MGD plant. The most that we can push out right now, given the limitations of the transmission mains and hydraulic capacity of the plant, is about 15 million. Our average day, it varies from year to year and even from month to month, but it's between 10.5 and 11 million gallons per day.
And right now, the capacity is 15 million.
Right about 15, yeah. We have the two, like I said, the two barriers. One is the transmission mains. So you have the hydraulic, but then you have also, the pressure related, the system pressure related issues, on the backside to be able to push that water out.
And your future expectations, just what are you thinking demand will be 3 years from now?
It's hard to say. We creep up every year. I would anticipate, with all of the new residential projects as well as the new commercial projects, that that on average we could see about 500,000 plus or minus increase per year.
Okay.
With what's in the queue.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll just add that we'll be debuting next Tuesday a video that was put together by staff along our communications staff along with our water and wastewater department that will act as an educational tool for the consumer as to how water gets from the Potomac to their faucet. And I think after looking at it, I think it's going to help all of us better understand the water system. There is a lot that goes into it, as you all saw when you visited R.C. Wilson back in, I think, October or November. And we thought it was important to get that information out to the public so that they could better understand, so that when we're talking about different expenditures and you're talking about different expenditures, they can have a resource to go to make more sense when you talk about PFAS or MGDs or EDUs, and makes it a little bit easier for folks to understand. So we'll be putting that out next week.
Would it be fair to say at current capacity, several years from now, we'll be at capacity if no changes are made?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's also, if we can make the improvements at Wilson, and if the Antietam source is approved, when those projects are done, as opposed to having a 20 MGD water supply, we would have a 25 MGD water supply. So really looking at that 20 year, 20-plus year window to, if you will, build the water, to restore and build the water system.
You mentioned many irons in the fire, and you certainly do have them going on. Of all the projects you listed, water, wastewater, what might be your highest priority that funding is still, you have a gap?
The largest gap, well, we have a gap on.
The highest priority.
The highest priority, they're kind of a competing, the transmission mains in the plant, they have to go together, and so you're looking at $100 million there. Right now, we have between $5 and $7 million in MDE bond issue, if you will, secured for that. So nowhere near what we need, but it doesn't, we have to do both in order for those projects to come together and work and achieve the goal of the 20 MGD.
Okay.
Councilmember Asher.
I think that it's important to understand that while staff indicates that there is an average daily demand of 10.5 to 11 million, and the plant has the capacity to produce 15, the point that should have left our joint meeting at the water plant is that plant runs 24/7, and there are a number of days through the year where we're using or seeing a demand upwards of 13.5 million. So those days do exist, even though the average is 10.5 to 11. And that plant doesn't have storage capacity capability, meaning everything we produce, we generally use the same day we produce it. There's no water sitting waiting in the event that the plant goes down. Really, when the plant goes down, we have about 12 hours worth of time or capacity within the system to make those corrective actions in any one of those zones, and those different zones, having a different demand on them before areas experience capacity drawdown and by default pressure loss. And so I know that we have this unique opportunity to look into or explore the idea of a 5 MGD plant on the Antietam Creek, but I'll say the same thing to you that I said to staff and the mayor and council in our discussion on that matter. That doesn't provide storage capability either, meaning we have to depend on the practicality of the Antietam being able to produce, if you will, that volume of water a day for us to draw that volume of water per day on the Antietam and still allow the requisite flow by on that creek and be able to produce and put into the system that amount of water every day. In other words, that there is no avenue where we produce water or have water stored from production that we can depend upon to maintain capacity and pressure for any more than a 12 to 24-hour period. And for me, that I think is part of the crux of what we need to look at for whatever decision we make to ensure that, these plants that are going to run 24/7, that we have the ability to continue to put water into the system in the event that we need to take corrective actions on any part of the system.
So for whoever can answer this question, you laid out a list of projects, some 60 million, some 10 million, some 5, some 3.5, and you have a priority list, but what's the total cost over a 5-year period or a 10-year period? And what have you got in the Hagerstown coffers to pay for that?
Well, if we had, it's safe to say if we had $150 million right now, I'm not sure that would address all of the needs looking at a 10-year window. As far as what we have in the Hagerstown coffers right now, we do have $20 million in funding, in a funding approval from MDE for the wastewater plant. We have about $4 million available in funding for the MAC tank. All of these are bond issues. So we have very little, if you will, grants or what I'll call free money. For the Antietam source, we have not secured any funding at all yet. We have to get through that study. For the transmission mains, I want to say it's in the $5 to $7 million funding that MDE has identified for possible funding for loan. That project was ranked and rated. So we might have about $35 million in funding for these identified projects, but nowhere near enough. And of the grant funding, $3 to $4.5 million in grant on the various loans in the form of either principal forgiveness after 5 years or just a grant. So we still have a long way to go. And like I said, these are bond issues. So once the project is completed, then, the debt service kicks in, which is then, of course, part of our operating budget. So
I think it's important to note, as it relates specifically to water and sewer infrastructure improvements, most of your large systems, like ours, depend heavily upon the state because the state's able to offer low-interest funding, low-interest long-term funding for these types of projects. Here's the rub that I have, and I think that I've expressed this in the past, and specifically I'll use the Edgemont Reservoir as an example. When we set out to do that in 2016, that was an improvement project at about $8 million. However, state MDE is the regulatory entity that determines how we go about taking that corrective action. We have yet to proceed with that project, and in that time, that project has went from an $8 million project to about an estimated $30 million project because of the items that the state MDE would require the city to do to make the necessary upgrades for the improvement on the system at that location. They're also the bank. And so the difficulty that I have is they're both the regulatory entity and the loan office dictating sort of, what you're going to improve in your system and how you're going to improve it, which has led us to this alternative idea of establishment of a new system on the Antietam. And so I think that it's important to remember that particular item. And the reality is, there is no real funding of this nature in our coffers to take care of this. You are borrowing against time, and in this case, on these projects, a very long amount of time. In other words, they aren't 20-year notes like you might see on your regular public improvement projects. These are 30 and 40-year notes because of the duration of which you expect this infrastructure to last.
And if I could add, a goal of this elected body would be to establish a working group between the city and the county staff to be able to work together. The staff could work together to talk about and update and, with the spirit of collaboration, be able to work together, city and county, to address the water concerns moving forward. So that would be a goal that we would like to offer to you guys, to maybe if we could put some of our staff and your staff together on a work group and then let them address these issues and bring them back to us, if that would be.
I'd like to add a little bit of information just to kind of put some numbers to what you're talking about here. Just adding up quickly what Nancy has mentioned, we have about $235 million in water and sewer infrastructure projects and only about $35 million in funding, it sounds like. So you have a $200 million gap. That would translate to debt service payments of $5 to $16 million per year. It would depend on what the interest rates are, what the terms are. Now, MDE does have water infrastructure financing through Water Quality Revolving Loan Fund. They do have terms that are generally higher, up to 30 years, and they have interest rates that are 25 to 50% below what market is. Other considerations that we need to take into account would be the rate impact or supplemental alternative funding sources for this. So, to fund $5 to $16 million a year for just the city for these projects would translate to, let's say, each 1 cent on the tax rate is about $1.5 million in tax. So we would most likely need to increase the tax rate in order to cover this. Other considerations that we would need to take into account would be rate equalization. The majority of the customers being served by your water plants are actually non-city residents, and they pay a considerably higher rate for their water services. So rate equalization would need to be something that would need to be considered. And then, of course, considering, again, that the majority of your customers are non-city residents, and you're asking for a $200 million investment from the county, and another consideration that would need to be looked at would be the fact that, do we need to consider a regional water authority to make sure that the county has, some say and some input into what's going on with, the water authority, the water and sewer implications that are happening here. Those are just my input from the county administrator's perspective.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm speaking for the council, but I'm not here asking the county for $200 million.
Didn't ask for anything.
What I'm saying is we're going to continue to own and maintain and operate our system, and we're going to identify the funding necessary to make those improvements, just like all water and sewer systems do across the state, and continue with the rate structure, just like all other systems operate across the state.
Yeah, Christian, I don't think that, that you were asking for that. But the bottom line is, and I've heard this now for my 5 years, is that obviously we tiptoe around it all the time. The water's the elephant in the room. It's development, it's our growth areas. We all know that. So it sounds like, there's a way to fix it, but it takes an enormous amount of money. And and I know it's good for the whole community, Washington County, Hagerstown, all the municipalities, I get that. But I don't know how, you can't do it, you guys can't fix this problem and expand without the money. And it looks like there's no way possible Hagerstown could raise that kind of money. We want to help, but I don't want, and I mean no disrespect by this, but if we tax our taxpayers in the county and you tax yours or whatever, however we do it, I don't know how else to say this, but you can't be king of the hill forever. If you want a collaborative effort, I'm here to be a collaborative effort. But, I mean, I don't see any way possible Hagerstown on its own can do this.
So, which would mean collaboration, right? Which would mean, and I think that it's important that we stop separating Hagerstown from the county. Hagerstown is the principal city in the county. When Hagerstown is doing well, everywhere else will do well. It is the principal city within the county.
I don't think you heard me say that.
I wasn't commenting on what you said. I was just saying that, of course, it takes us working together. Of course, the city of Hagerstown can't do anything alone. We need our county officials, our elected body, to work with us collaboratively.
But then the city would also have to work with us, and maybe I'm wrong.
I just asked for that.
Well,
Just asked for that.
Well, we're looking at a structure.
And she responded back with, we asked for $200 million.
Well, that would be worst case, to fill the gap between the city and everybody, because that's the delta that was identified, whether it's, however you cobble it together, it's $200 million need. And I think I mentioned this to you once before, Mayor, that, when people are working, when there are issues and things are impacting subparts of this community or people that aren't within the city limits, but they're consumers of water, or they need water, or, they're looking at development, but they're hamstrung because of lack of access. What I would be looking for, what I advocate for, is just a seat at the table. So, and what's the structure for that? How is that done effectively so that a voice is actually heard and has some import and is not just, routinized with not any authority. So what would the organization be to formalize water decisions that impact county and city, that impact all of our citizens, because all of ours are Hagerstown citizens, but you don't represent all of the county citizens that are directly impacted as consumers. And so my view would be that there should be some organizing principle that no one has veto power. No one can act as a dictator and force things like pre-annexation agreements. I'll just throw that out there, okay? No, it's an issue. It is an issue. And Chris, you might not like it, but it is an issue.
There's 157 municipalities across the state of Maryland do exactly that, every day of the week.
And it creates friction in another place. It creates friction every place, and it gets resolved in different ways in other places, okay? So what is your opposition to having a collaborative, formalized structure that allows the input? You want collaboration. What would it look like to you?
So I believe that it would be the staff working together, because we're elected, we're politicians, and I believe that the politics and the relationships get in the way of what the staff needs to be able to do on behalf of all the constituents of Washington County. This body does not represent the entire county. We're very aware of that, but you do. And so we're asking for a collab. I don't know what it looks like. We're asking to collaborate on that process with this elected body.
How about this? Let's let the staff work together to look at what type of an organization would make sense that would protect the interests of Hagerstown, because you would have your people there come up with 1, 2, or 3 theoretical options to be considered. And I don't think we should roll our eyes at this or anything, because I think it's a pragmatic approach. And, you know, let the staff look at the obstacles, the pros and the cons of different options for some type of organizational relationship that has some authority that can represent your interests and the interests of the county.
Harvey, hi. My name's Peter Perini. We've met.
Yep.
New council member. And first of all, I want to say thank you to the commissioners for inviting us, and we will certainly reciprocate, hopefully soon. I have a question regarding that question, and because I'm new, so I'm learning. But what do you feel would be the city's motivation to do what you're proposing?
It would be to be able to address the larger issues of water, wastewater, and freshwater distribution.
Okay, well, we are addressing
and to be able to pay for it, and to make collaborative decisions about where and how water and wastewater extensions are granted, okay, that intersect with development issues, et cetera.
But we already do all of those things.
Well, the county doesn't, and the county constituents that are the majority of your consumers don't have a vote at the table, don't have any say, don't have any input.
That's only because the city failed to annex for 50 years. In the last 20 years, annexation policy, we've grown 30 to 40%. We're able to annex those areas we're supposed to, no different than cities like Frederick City do and have done for decades, and serve those systems. So that jurisdictional boundary is simply a creation of decisions over a period of time, not by want of the city, to have those areas within the city boundaries, just like every other municipality does across the state.
If the goal is to provide water and services to our constituents, what is wrong with having county and city working together in a joint body that makes decisions to make sure that all of the constituents that we have are provided the best opportunity for water and sewer at reasonable rates?
May I? Mayor, a few moments ago, you brought up establishing a working group. I know this is a great conversation, but isn't this some of the things our working group would establish and work together collaboratively as a partner. So I don't mind all the comments and discussion coming up, but I think establishing that working group per your suggestion is something we ought to start immediately and get that underway. When you say at max maybe 15 million gallons per day, and Councilman Alshire saying sometimes it's 13.5 million, we're running out of time. 6 months, a year will go. So I think the sooner we get this group together and have these candid discussions between staff and open in the meetings for transparency like that, the better. And I'm willing to help and be a participant and being a partner helping all Washington County. So that's my thoughts on what we're discussing today.
But what should the working group be doing? What's the goal of the working group?
We'll establish that between
right.
staff, the
Okay.
roles, and get together. First thing is get a meeting together between staff to start working on this under our direction.
And I'll say the same thing I said at our meeting at the water plant. You know, I sat on the Water Sewer Infrastructure Commission in 2005. So the first thing folks should do is probably go read that document, because all that ended up being was an effort of the business community in the county looking for an avenue to take ownership through a regional authority of the city's water and sewer system. And that, for me, was not the purpose of that group. It was to address pending capacity issues. And I said in the dissenting opinion on that report that we would be exactly here before that ever got accomplished.
One of the questions that come up, and so on a staff level, if I were going to make one request of all of the elected officials, it's this. There is a grant funding cap of 1.5 million. When we're talking about bond issues of 20 million, 40 million, $100 million, that 1.5 million in cap on grants and that 1.5 million cap on principal forgiveness is not enough. So from an elected body perspective, if the two bodies could come together and work with the state and our federal elected officials and to find, to either amend the caps or find a way to have new or better grant opportunities to help offset these huge bond issues. That would be a benefit for every customer on our systems, whether it's our water system or our wastewater system, whether it's a county-owned system or a city-owned system. That $1.5 million cap on grants is just, it doesn't even cover the cost of the bond itself. So on a staff level, that would be my ask, you know, of the elected officials, all of you, is to work on that. The more grant money we receive, the more affordable our systems will be.
Are we good on that, on the water?
Yes, so we're in agreement. We're going to get staff together, but I understand.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good, Commissioner Brown?
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Also, staff understands that the county has disbanded the Emergency Services Advisory Council, the ESAC. And so the Hagerstown Fire Department has shown the commissioners in the past our thoughts on the commission that would help provide direction to the elected bodies of the city and the county related to emergency services management. And would appreciate if Deputy Fire Chief Adam Hawkins and our brand-new Fire Chief, Mr. John DeBacco, an opportunity to briefly revisit with the commissioners for their information and thoughts.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is John DeBacco. I'm the Fire Chief for City of Hagerstown. In week number 4 on the job here, so relatively new and still learning a lot about it. But thank you for the opportunity to the council, to the mayor, for allowing us to present. We wanted to discuss and present some information concerning development of a governance-type model board for fire and emergency services for the county. Our goal at the end of it would be to develop a working group of city and county staff which would further discuss and refine this commission structure. The overall strategy and objectives for this would be to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of fire and emergency services in the county.
by looking at things such as policy and procedures, looking at how we maximize all of our resources, and that may include response plans and auto aid agreements, and looking at the quality and the quantity of the service that is provided to the residents of Washington County and the city of Hagerstown. The development of the board would represent all parties who have interest in the service, including county volunteers, city, DES, as well as representatives from the community, including the Community Action Council, Meritus Medical, and the Chamber of Commerce, bringing a wide group of people together with a variety of interest to represent the needs of the citizens. I'll turn it over to Chief Hopkins, who has a greater historical and institutional knowledge of the programs, to answer any questions as well.
So what we're actually looking at here is like a four-tiered system with different levels. So the citizens would obviously be at the top, followed by the authority being both the Washington County Board of County Commissioners and the Hagerstown Mayor and City Council. Underneath of that would be a Fire Rescue Commission chair. They'd be a non-voting member of the governance body, and the governance body be made up of an IAFF representative, the WCB, FRA, Washington County Volunteer Fire Rescue Association representative, someone from the Community Action Council, a person from Meritus Medical Center, a Chamber of Commerce representative, a Washington County citizen at large of your choice, and a Hagerstown City citizen at large. Underneath the governance would be an operational level, which would include the Washington County Division of Emergency Services Director, the Washington County Volunteer Fire Rescue Association President, and the Hagerstown Fire Chief as the three different operational authorities that are within the county, since all the volunteer companies do answer to the Volunteer Fire Rescue Association. Beneath the operational level would be an advisory board of 9 different people. Would be a city officer from the volunteer side. It'd be a South County volunteer chief level officer. So you've probably seen it before with Division of Emergency Services graphs that represent and break the county into different regions or battalions. So there'd be a south, a west, a metro or central, and an east battalion, and then each of those areas would have representatives. There would be union representation from both the HFD and the Division of Emergency Services locals, and then a representative from the Hagerstown Fire Department and the Division of Emergency Services on that advisory level. This kind of segued right from that water discussion with Commissioner Harvey's comments about having a collaborative, formalized structure that allows the input of the authorities, but no veto power. So that somebody is overseeing a lot of these agencies that are being funded by taxpayer dollars to make sure those taxpayer dollars are being spent correctly. It allows us to collaborate better and to cooperate and provide better service to the citizens.
I just want to add a couple of things to that. This sounds a lot like the model that was proposed to us from the ESAC committee before it was disbanded, and that model was almost unanimously turned down by the Washington County Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association. Governance of all county operations start with our Division of Emergency Services Director. They then follow to me, the county administrator, and then ultimately to the Board of County Commissioners. And that's everything that I have.
Yeah, I was on ESAC for 5 years as a commissioner. I've seen the flow chart, and I guess it seems that we tried this on ESAC, everybody lost interest, nobody showed up, you know the story. And then the association didn't like, they agreed with, decommissioning ESAC. I guess when we have a huge payroll of Division of Emergency Services, and we have a county association, and then we have a chief, a deputy chief in Hagerstown, and every municipality. Me personally, I can't get why we're going to put 30 more people in the mix with 30 more opinions. It's just, that's the part someone would have to sell me on that. I'm not speaking for the other commissioners, but I just don't quite grasp the purpose of that yet.
This would be providing general oversight of the entire system as a whole, where right now we are 3 different entities. And the ESAC, it got disbanded because everybody got upset because somebody was going to be oversight. And nobody, quotes from some of the association meetings was, nobody's going to tell us how we're going to spend our money. Right. It's taxpayer money.
Adam, could you give an example of when you say oversight, a hypothetical issue that might be found and kind of like the procedures for how this committee would address it and who has ultimate, if the issue was found to be maybe a station in the city versus a station outside of the city, like how would it be addressed? Who has the final decision to say this is what you're going to do to rectify it? Just kind of help me out a little bit. Does that make sense?
That would be something we would have to figure out within those rules and regulations. The elephant in the room would be funding overall. Could be handled by that governance board of how funding is going to be distributed and spent on fire and rescue services. Just as an example.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful by any means. I'm open-minded to anything. I always have been.
Yeah.
But I'm the guy that the buck stops at usually. I'm the one that gets the phone calls. I'm the one that gets bitched at. I'm the one, that has to make the hard decisions sometimes, along with the advice from staff. I mean, where does that leave me or any of the commissioners or elected officials? Because we're the guys that get pounded. And if there's not a call, if there's a late call, if somebody does this or, I don't want, if I'm the guy out there carrying the sign trying to get elected, I don't want somebody making my decisions and I got to answer for them. If I make a mistake, I'll answer my own decisions. Am I off base on this, or tell me where we fall into this?
We're just trying to find a way for this city and the county fire services to do more collaboration collectively where we're required to do it.
And I guess the part I have a hard understanding, and I agree with that. That's good. Everybody, collaborate. I mean, sometimes you can really work things out. But why can't we do that anyway without having 30 more people involved? I guess that's where I'm at. When you got that many people, I was there, it never works quite right. And
All those people wouldn't be meeting at one time. It would be,
But
the
they'd be-
advisory group would go to the operational group would then go.
I was pretty happy with the association. I'm pretty happy with the way we do things. I'm pretty happy with our Division of Emergency Service. Can things be done better? Always. I guess I just have to be, I don't know, someone bail me out on this one. I guess I would just have to be more sold on. And I was there for 5 years talking about this, and I still didn't quite get the purpose of it.
If I may, Randy, I'm not sure, as I've heard this and I've watched this closely for the last year and watched this ESAC debate, what is, there's a chain of command here. We have DES and we have you and others. And my expectation, if I'm in a military organization, federal government, someplace else, business, there are authorities, there are responsibilities, and part of those authorities and responsibilities, in my view, are that people like you and Dave Hayes and stuff, it's incumbent upon them to do their jobs and work together. And, if there are gaps, you guys should be identifying those gaps and working through those solutions. And or options, and if you need our authority or the mayor's authority to do something, you guys should be working together and then bringing it to us to address it. So I'm not sure what is not working, and I'm pretty sure what the missions are and what the authorities are, that at least on the county side. But what's not working? What are we actually doing? What are the things we should be doing that we're not doing, for example? And are there things that are being done that are outside of your mission lane or your authority, that are taking your resources? Those are basic questions. But at the end of the day, accountability. You guys are accountable, and I'm not sure what the problem is we're trying to actually fix that is outside of what you already have responsibility and authority to address. Kristen, maybe.
Well, I think it sounds like that there's an interest to continue to work independently, together, but independently as independent entities, right? And I'm okay with that. So as a county resident, just like every other county resident in here, we all pay about $150 of our county taxes every year that support the county's responsibility for fire rescue and EMS service. I mean, that's state law. It says that's the county's obligation to provide that particular service to the county. The county does that through its operations. I'm okay with that. So no matter where I'm at, I should receive, just like every other county resident, the same $150 worth of services regardless of what volunteer company or fire rescue or EMS entity responds to that need, right? That's how it should work. I get the same thing. I'm okay with that. And if we're going to operate independently, I'm good with that. And I've said this before. What that means to me as a city resident, so municipalities are not required to provide fire rescue and EMS service. In fact, I think we're only one of 4 left out of the 157 municipalities that do it across the state of Maryland. And we get no compensation, unlike Cumberland, Salisbury, and Annapolis that do get compensation from the counties to provide that municipal service. We don't get that here, and I'm okay with that. If I'm going to pay $400 in city taxes a year for a paid fire service, then I should get that service in addition to that same service I receive as a county resident. What I don't believe should occur is that city-paid operation leave the city limits, because that's a paid service that city taxpayers are paying an additional amount for to receive and be guaranteed in that process. So if we're going to operate independently, I'm okay with that as long as that independent operation operates in that manner in which the tax dollars are directed to take care of.
So let me get this straight, what you just said. So if we remain independent, your vote would be for your city apparatus never to leave the city limits. Is that what you just said?
Correct.
Sad statement, Christian, that you wouldn't come across the line when there was a fire. I'm not going to have to explain. If I have to explain that to you, then
maybe I could help. Maybe I could help. Because I think that whenever we ask for collaboration, there is almost like there's some type of, we want to take away power. We want to, be the big dogs. We want to be in charge. We want to make all the decisions at the table. And that is not what we are sitting here saying. That is not what anybody on this elected body represents. We want to bring everything and everyone together. And so when you hear our fire chief and our deputy fire chief just ask for some collaboration, and then the response back is, I think that we're okay with how we're working, that kind of thing, that's why the council members' comments was what it was. It wasn't to say we don't want to save lives if there's a fire happening across the street, which is not in the city in the city limits. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is we need to work together, and the constituents need to understand what body is causing the friction, because it's constantly, it's the city, it's the city, it's the city. And we're sitting here saying we want to work together. We want our staff to be able to work together. Go ahead.
I just wanted to give you some statistics that we pulled out of our CAD system.
I didn't ask for any. I don't need any statistics.
Well, she wants to reply, so
yes.
Please allow her.
For calls for service in 2023, we had 31,388 calls for service for EMS and fire. 41% of our calls for service were actually in the city limits, not in the city limits. So 41% of the budget that we have goes to city residents and not to county residents. We also pay.
Residents are county residents.
They are, but you refer to them as county, so I'm going to refer to them the way that you're referring to them. Our CRS station, we have provided a significant amount of funding for CRS. 67.8% of their calls for service are actually in the city limits. So I believe there is a significant amount of collaboration on the county's part. We don't stop at the city limits and don't provide service because they are county residents. And that is shown by the amount of calls for service that we actually respond to in the city limits versus not in the city limits.
Right, and I don't know why we're on the defense with the things that we're asking for. That it's not a competing, or it's not a, this is what we want from you, and this is all. This is not what this conversation is. This is not even what this hour was supposed to be about. It was supposed to be an hour of transparency to say this elected body wants to work together. Let our staff work together. Let the people that are the experts, which is our fire chief and deputy fire chief, along with your emergency go ahead.
I thought that's what we were saying. Those two should be working with, our EMS and DES chiefs.
Absolutely.
To make those issues. And as I said, they have lots of authority and they have responsibility to get the job done. And if they can't do it together, then there might be a problem. But I haven't heard from our DES folks or anybody that there's a lack of communication or a lack of facilitation. And at the operational level, where the rubber hits the road, they work together. They cross boundaries, and they should cross boundaries because there's mutual need. We have fire departments from Waynesboro come into the county, okay, to assist when needed. And that's as it should be, because we're trying to protect the lives of people, and we shouldn't allow some arbitrary, archaic, parochial view get in the way. And everyone should have a seat at the table, as I said, but what's the organizational framework, okay? And do we need another one or not, okay? And maybe, did you coordinate with Dave Hayes or Tom Brown on any of this?
This information was shared by DES. It was developed from it. This isn't the same chart that you've seen previously. There have been some modifications based on our needs. When we look at fundamentals here, and we're talking higher level so far, but from the operational side, and you asked about operations, one of the things that we ask for is consistent staffing and consistent quality service or equity of service. And so what you're getting from some departments may not be the same as you're getting from the others. What we're looking for on the operational side is if we ask for help, there's a specific package of equipment or people that we need, and we like to see it on a consistent basis. Working down at the lower levels, certainly I could work with Dave Hayes. We have the Washington County Volunteer Fire Rescue Association. Between DES, HFD, and the Volunteer Fire Rescue Association, you have 3 separate entities with different lines of authority and governance. And this is our ask, that we look at the possibility of bringing those together in a collaborative method, collaborative way. And I believe in collaboration, communication, and cooperation to get these done. And that's all we're asking, is to take another look at this. Not that it is impossible, not that it hasn't been tried before, but it is something I think it's worth putting a group together. Below the level of the top officials, the personnel who are actually running the stations, running the calls, who have more input or insight into the daily operations and what they can do, and let that come up through the system.
So your next step might be to meet with our Division of Emergency Service and start talking about this presentation. Is that what you're saying, basically?
I believe what we're asking for is the opportunity that we would have some cooperation with city and county staff and get the parties who are necessary to make this work together under some guidance, and start developing it from there. What we have now is working, but is not working as, in my view, 100%. We can do better, and the people deserve better from us, and we're just looking for ways to improve our staffing, our standards of response, our coverage. Those are the outcomes.
Yeah, and I'm surely not against that. I guess I go back to Commissioner Harvey. It seems to me that you guys would be, heck, y'all forgot more about this than last night than what I know. It seems like you'd already be doing that. You'd be collaborating with everybody before and seeing because it's your job. That's what you do anyway. That's the part I didn't quite get either.
We do already cooperate and collaborate. We're not saying that DES and association do not. We actually have a very good working relationship there. We're trying to take this to the next level so that way the 3 of us, maybe there will be a situation where we don't work together. Or the other thing is, there's a lot of issues that are being brought up right here, right now, that are above our levels at Dave Hayes and Chief Tobacco's seats, where they need to be addressed, and somebody needs to have the ability to address them.
Well, I'd hope Dave Hayes would bring it to us. I haven't heard him bring those issues to to our
If
body.
the issues here we're discussing about the funding and things of that nature, that's above our level, but it's stuff that needs to be addressed.
If I may, and Chief, if you could clarify for me, it sounds to me like maybe the ask of our bodies is to have some sort of official collaboration. It sounds like they do work together well now, but it sounds like they're looking for some sort of official framework so that if there's personality clash or personnel clash or, elected body clash or something, that they still have a mechanism to officially meet and work together. That's what I'm hearing, it sounds like.
But ESAC didn't serve as a governance model. They were an advisory council only.
We're not looking for we're looking for something different.
You want a governance model.
Thank you.
Okay, well, let's,
It is 10:30,
yeah,
and so.
well, we can take a look at this, and I'd like to hear from Dave Hayes and Tom Brown, or whoever replaces Tom eventually, on their recommendations for the way forward, but.
Well, we can,
Dave, you want to come up?
Yeah, I just want to address a couple of things. One is I want to make sure there's clarity, and this is nothing to Chief DeVaca or Chief Hopkins. We did not produce a document that they read today.
No.
Components of documents and prior conversations that were included back under previous administrators, and that we didn't produce a document that included the Community Action Council, Greater Hagerstown, or any of this. So I want to make sure there's clarity in that. I think there's two issues here that if I could probably look into Chief DeBacco's mind, the bigger one, I believe, that probably is where we would agree on, is strategic development, strategic planning, not so much governance right now. The system will be ready for something I think that we've approached here at some time in the future. I don't believe it's today. And I say that because there's a large volunteer component here, and they own a lot of the assets that the county doesn't own. The city's in a little different position in that the city owns at least 2 of the stations, all of the apparatus, and for all intensive purposes, the city of Hagerstown's fire department is mostly a career department supplemented by volunteer. The county's going through that transition. So I don't want to discourage the conversation here. I don't believe and personally wouldn't support a governance model today. I would support a work group that could look at some of the issues collectively that both departments and the Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association probably share. So that would be what I would put into the conversation today. And to Chief DeBacco's, we've only met one time, so we haven't had a lot of time to really develop that intimate relationship and understanding of what each other's concerns might be.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
all right, thanks, Dave.
Yeah, good.
And if I could, I know that our time is up, but I have one more. Would that be okay?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. And so first to go back to that, developing a work group is the goal, to develop a work group with that staff.
For the water.
Yeah, for the water, and I'm sorry, for the fire services, just what your chief just said, not a governance, but a working group. So that's the correct language. I want to address a concern by the county regarding the perception that the city is no longer participating in the narcotics task force. And our chief, Kiefer, is here to provide comments and to take any questions. And so thank you also for the extra time. I just want to make sure that we address this to any concerns that you guys may have.
Hi, good morning. Yes, I just want to reiterate that we are not pulling out of the task force. I've had discussions with Sheriff Albert back last December, a year ago, and with the state's attorney around that same time about my concerns about how the task force was operating and running for the last several years. It's a model that was developed in the 80s, and it doesn't work the way it did back in the 80s. The laws have changed, the rules have changed. The rules have changed dramatically on being able to use confidential informants. So all of those processes of how we ran the task force for all those years doesn't work the same way anymore. So we have worked, I've worked with the sheriff and with Gina on how we change the way we look at running the task force. My staffing issues have been a problem for the last 5 years or so, and that's been a challenge in itself. So what I've done is I've taken my crime suppression team that I put together back in August of '22, and I've reassigned two of them to the task force, but essentially the whole unit is now part of the task force. They were doing drug task force work anyway. They were just doing it within the city limits at the direction to meet the needs that we needed here to reduce the violence and the crime that was going on, which they've been very successful at. Even back then, before they became officially part of the task force, they were seizing all drug assets, was still going through the drug task force. So all the drug seizure money was still being forwarded out there and handled through the task force and the DEA. So what we've done is just remodeled how we're running the task force to be more efficient in today's world and to give a much better focus. And I don't want to belittle what has happened at the task force by any stretch of imagination, but just to give you an example, last year, there was only 49 cases handled by the task force. My crime suppression team made 200 drug arrests in 6 months. So the model just didn't work the way it did before. We are working collaboratively on that, the sheriff and I and the state's attorney. My view of the task force is not to have men and women sitting in a building doing an archaic way of policing drug world that we did back in the 80s and the 90s. So we've migrated them to be back out on the street more with a lot more focus on things that may not be directly looking at drugs in the beginning, but drugs are associated with pretty much everything that we deal with. So even the violence and everything that they can address will lead us into the drug world as well. The use of wires that we've done in the past, again, is a thing of the past. And the reason why is that our drug dealers don't use the same phones like they used to. They use Instagram and Snapchat and all these other functions. So the use of sitting in a room and listening to phone calls like we did in the past is something that's very rare. We still do that from time to time, but those are rare occurrences. So the model has just changed. But my commitment to the county, to assigning staff to help with countywide drug narcotics issues is unwavering, and it's still as strong as it was before we made this change. I've actually increased the amount of manpower that can help with that function by bringing the crime suppression team over.
I'd like to provide the board with some additional information related to the City of Hagerstown statistics. Since 2000, the city has annexed about 1,400 acres into the city limits. During that time, they have also decreased the number of funded police officers. In fiscal year 2000, they had 99 funded police officers. As of fiscal year 2024, they have 91 funded police officers. So, let's see. They've had a 21% increase in the land area inside of the city limits, and they've had an 8% decrease in the number of funded police officers. During that same time, I also compared this to statistics for their calls for service and their population, and this information is all obtained from their annual comprehensive financial report in the statistical section. From 2000 to 2024, calls for service have increased by 55%, or from 53,000 calls for service to 82,000 calls for service. And in that same time, the number of funded police officers has decreased by 8%. Population in the city limits has increased by 19% since 2000. So from 2000, the population was 36,687. Population in fiscal year 2024 is almost 44,000. So the population has also increased by 19%. So the number of funded police officers isn't corresponding to the other statistics, the other indicators that are happening in the city of Hagerstown.
I'd like to address that. The authorization of 91 officers, I'm still not at 91 officers. We reduced the authorized strength to help retain officers that I had at the time by migrating that money and that funding over to pay raises to the existing officers that were on my staff that were leaving to go to other higher paying police jobs, including your own. So the fact that we haven't grown our police force has nothing to do with the growth of the tax base. It's the fact that I can't get people to want to get to be police officers. We are testing repetitively. We are testing continually. And as I make 2 steps forward, I make 3 steps backwards with people that retire or leave. I'm not the only agency going through this. This is a nationwide problem with policing. Your agency's having the same issues. I've talked to Sheriff Albert on these things. So we're all competing for the same small pool of people that are qualified and able to get through processes to be hired to do the job. And we are at 91, but this body that's up here, when we did that reduction down to 91, gave me their word, and the finance director gave me their word that if I reached 91 officers and needed more, they would authorize the additional money to hire additional officers. I can't get to 91. So we are repurposing how we're doing policing at the Hagerstown Police Department. We're civilianizing where we can. We created a watch center so that we can take calls for service of that increase that Ms. Gordon had talked about that we've seen in terms of calls for service. 35% of those calls we're trying to shoot for a call-taking center that's manned by civilians that can take those calls away from the actual police officers on the street so that can put them into the areas to do policing that only they can do on the street. So we're increasing our civilian component. We are modernizing how we're doing things, the drone program, all the things we're doing to try to supplement the lack of staff to be able to meet the needs of our city residents at an efficient and effective way that they're used to and accustomed to. And I think we've met that. I think we've done that even with the lower staff that we have. And all the stresses and things that go on to the men and women that are out here every day working the street with minimal numbers. So it's not a lack of funding. It's not a lack of support from this body up here. It's just the way that this is in our profession right now. We cannot get people wanting to come to work that can pass a process and want to be police officers like they did 10, 15 years ago. And that is just the reality that I've had to come to deal with. And we also have a workforce that doesn't want to work and don't have the idea of putting in 25 or 30 years in a job. They want to work, and 7 years later, they're looking for the next shiny object or something better that can enhance their lives. So we're constantly looking at replacing staff that don't stick around for those long terms like we used to in the past. So we've had to change that model.
Could I just ask one real quick question? And I totally sympathize with the task and the challenge, and policing is much harder now because of all the rules. I can't imagine someone really wanting to go in there. It takes an exceptional person to do that. And I thank all of our law enforcement, both in the county and the city. What's the difference in pay between the county sheriff's department and your department?
Starting salary is fairly close right now, but the top end is dramatically different for you guys than it is for us.
Do you have an idea what it is?
I can tell you that there are people in lower ranks at your agency make more than I do. A lot more than I do.
In some way, pay might be a factor.
Yes and no. There are a lot of factors when it goes into what officers want to, where they want to stay. And what we found is that people will stay where they enjoy working over just a monetary amount. But there's other things, take-home cars and other things that go into play.
Tax breaks, things like that are targeted for
calls for service, the volume of calls for service and how busy somebody is. We've had people that have left that enjoy not being as busy. And nothing against the sheriff's department because they are busy for what they do, and I respect them having to cover the large, vast area that they have to cover by themselves. But the call volume is not the same as the call volume is in the city. And so some people want that slower pace. I can't compete with that. That's not how that works.
Yeah. Very good insights. Thank you.
Since we're providing statistics today on public safety, numbers and percentages, I want to leave you with this, at least from me. The city of Hagerstown collects about $30 million a year in property taxes, right? The city of Hagerstown, no different than Williamsport or Boonesboro or any other municipality across the state, is not required to provide public safety services in fire, rescue, EMS, or police. We're not required to do that. That is a county responsibility or state directive, okay? Out of that $30 million that we collect in property taxes, we spend about $10 million for a paid fire service, and we spend about $14 to $15 million for a Hagerstown Police Department. That's $25 million extra dollars that the City of Hagerstown residents generate and pay to ensure that we have the level of police, fire, and rescue services that we have in the City of Hagerstown. It's not a responsibility, not the responsibility of the taxpayers, the county residents that happen to just live within the city, but we do that. So if we were, no differently than when Frederick City disbanded its fire service in its city, if we were to disband those two services today, that responsibility would be the county's. It would not change the dynamics of the directives, of the expectations and the responsibilities that those county residents that live within the city receive, no differently than every other county resident in Washington County.
And I want to end with this. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for the extra time. Thank you for, giving us as much time to be able to talk through these things in a public setting where our constituents can also hear. I want to say, as elected officials, that we came here with our staff to make some things very transparent. And I would just say that I would be very, very upset if my city administrator would not have understood what was happening. I believe that your county administrator kind of misunderstood some things. We wanted to clear up some language around that was happening with NTF. We're pulling out of NTF or we're not supporting, and that wasn't the case. And we just wanted to clear that up. If we want to talk statistics, I think that was kind of, we didn't need that. It just didn't, it was elected body to elected body with our staff to kind of add some language because they are the experience and they're the ones that do the work every single day. And so again, I thank you so much for your time. As the mayor of City of Hagerstown, we are very, very thankful and happy to serve at this, what's happening right now, where the city is growing as well as the county very rapidly. And I continue to look forward to work with you guys, especially you, Commissioner Barr, moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
If I could maybe say one thing before we leave, and, I said this the last time we met jointly, it'll vary a little differently now. From our meeting today, we have two work groups that started, it sounds like, one on water and sewer, and the other on an organizational plan for emergency services. Could we maybe at this meeting commit to when a follow-up might be, just so we don't kick the can down the road? We can kind of keep that momentum going. Would we agree to
Just get back to us.
90 days, 6 months? What's appropriate?
I'd certainly like to see quarterly joint meetings, and we are more than willing to host
Yeah, we always met
those.
twice a year anyway, so quarterly or more often would be fine. It's all right.
And so you could be our guests at City Hall the next time?
But don't give me socks. I got enough of them from the county already.
So we're saying April. April for a follow-up. Is that right?
We'll work on that.
Doesn't sound like it.
so much.
3-minute break.
Yeah, thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Am I on?
You're up.
Okay. Good morning. As you all know me, I'm Dr. Jim Clobber, president of Hagerstown Community College, and to my left, your right, is Dr. Heike Software-Filicerto, who's our vice president for finance and administration. I'll take a minute or two, if I can, just to tell you that things are going gangbusters out at the college this year. The implementation of the blueprint, our enrollment has gone from 3,600 students to just over 5,000, and that's been crazy. It's been wow, but in a good sense. You know, I go into buildings, they're full of students. I go into the student center, and it's full of students, and so that's kind of an exciting thing. We have a lot of students who are taking courses in the high schools, but we have an increase of over 500 that are taking courses at the college, either full or part-time. So that has been a lot, and it is, you know, it's exciting, and managing all that change and that much growth that quickly has been a challenge for us, but we've been able to do it. We have submitted our budget request to you all this year. I appreciate the increase that you gave us in operational funding last year, or the year we're in right now, and want to tell you that we're not making a request for an increase in operational funding for this next year. So I ask that you keep us the same where we are. You know, and I think as I look, the state has finally, after 20 some odd years, started to fund the CADE formula at full funding. And that has helped us, especially with this enrollment growth. It helps us on that operational side, so I really don't have to come to you and ask for more money right at this point. And I think as long as the state continues to do that and they don't cut us, and we have a governor who's a 2-year college graduate who talks effusively about the community colleges, so I'm optimistic that our funding will stay intact, that I won't have to come to you for operational needs.
You don't hear that much.
I know. Well, we just want to hope it stays that way. The one thing, I do have 2 things I want to talk with you about.
There's always a but with you,
But,
Jim.
that's exactly right. But there's a couple of things I want to talk with you about. And I've talked with county administrator about this, but I want to share it with you. The Advanced Technology Center renovation, that renovation is set to, we have retained the architects and should hopefully start working on A&E sometime this spring, and I'd like to go to bid and have them renovating that building in the fall. That building used to be the old gym, if you remember the old HJC, and it is, the state has estimated that that total project is probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of about $14 million. Which blows my mind. It's just the cost of things has just gone sky high. And you all have committed $4.2 million spread over time to FY30. That project's going to probably be finished by FY26, maybe at the longest 27. I was going to ask, not for more money, but ask that maybe if possible, when you look at your bonded, your bonding operations, if you could look at collapsing some of those payments down and shortening that payout period instead of going out to FY30, which is where we're scheduled to go to now, maybe moving that back down to this year, next year, and the year after, or something like that. I don't know what your capacity is or what you're looking at, but I think that would be very helpful on us because we're having to use our reserves to front that as the county repays us over time. So that would be the first thing. The second thing is, I really didn't think I was going to have to do this, but I'm going to have to do it. And I will tell you, over my career, I have watched the number of mental health cases among college students explode. I mean, explode. And COVID only accelerated it. It has only made it worse. We are all having to deal with that, and it is a real challenge. And I am working with outside agencies to partner to try and bring, clinical counselors, to have someone on campus so that students can have someone to talk to and kind of work through a lot of emotional baggage of which they carry. And that's a challenge because I don't have a place to put put those people or a place where they can meet and quiet and, you know, in a kind of a HIPAA type of setting. The other thing that happened, interestingly enough, this year, especially to an old country boy from South Carolina, is that the Maryland legislature passed a law last year that said that all colleges and universities in the state of Maryland, all public ones, were required to provide space for free exercise of religion. We've not really had any space like that before. And so we've got a mandate to do that from the state. We put in December a package to the Department of Budget and Management and MHAC for about I guess $12 million facility that would address a location for us to address mental health concerns, but would also provide a worship center on campus and would provide a place for students to go meditate, to worship during the day in a non-denominational format. You know, it is, and I will tell you, I did my research over the summer. There is a tie to the benefits of spirituality and religiosity when paired with mental health. And, you know, I think if we can combine these two activities into one location, then we can meet the demands of the state. We can also meet the needs of our students. And, you know, the state would provide about, as of this year, 67% of the funding for that project. So the local amount would be about $4 million. I think by the time you get to the time you put out bids, it'll be about $4 million. And I'm asking the county to provide $2 million of that. And we can provide $2 million out of our reserves. If I do this, I want to do it right, and I want to make that worship center something we can all be proud of. You know, Hagerstown has a legacy with the Moeller Organ Company. You know, I want to put a Moeller organ in the place and be able to teach people, use that as also as a training space to teach people how to play the pipe organ, which is a dying art. And I think that we can rally some community support for that facility as well. And, you know, I probably would not even be talking with you about this had the legislature not passed that law, but they did, and so I'm here. And, you know, we've put in, as I say, we put in our packet in December for that project. You know, if it is approved by the legislature, we'd be looking at A&E sometime next year. So we would need funding probably 27, 28. That's why I want to put that on your time horizon, because that, you know, also may work with how you're going to fund the ATC and that first request for that renovation. And that's all I have.
Dr. Klauber, on
Yes,
that
sir.
spiritual, the worship center, what other strings are attached to that? Do you have to have a spiritual or a minister of some type on
Nope.
site? So
They hadn't passed that yet.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to take you're going to have to hire somebody to, obviously going to take more personnel for that complex.
We will probably take have a person from Student Services who works with our existing BIT care team and in that area for student emotional health. And, you know, we will probably have a person in that building. Then for activities in the main area, we'll just run it through scheduling like we do normally. And so we'll absorb that internally. But no, they've not come back and said we have to hire somebody. They just said we have to provide the space.
Yeah.
Dr. Klauber, you say a $4 million total project.
For local match. I think it's probably about a $12 million project.
$12 million project, okay. So the county's contribution, $2 million of that local match requirement.
Right.
Okay. Then that negates my next question, so.
Okay.
Okay, any other?
Klauber, just real quick, free exercise of religion, it should be free anywhere we're at, since it's guaranteed in the Constitution. But I appreciate the legislators' support for focusing on something that will have some synergy with your mental health efforts too, and I think I agree with you. Have you seen anything, just when you're looking at your mental health issues in your student body, what are the contributing factors to that rise? Is part of it, drug use, marijuana use? Because we know it's documented that there are mental health issues associated with THC, increase in schizophrenia, or social media, or family breakdown, or just lack of traditional values.
I tell you, Commissioner Harvey, I'd have to say probably all of the above. I do believe that especially high school students being locked out of school, put into their homes, doing courses by Zoom for the better part of a year, not being able to socialize with their friends, especially when they weren't even, most of them were in any risk factor. I have a PhD, I'm got an MD, but I can just tell you, I think that was detrimental to them. I saw it in my own household with my sons. It was detrimental to lock those kids away in their house when they should have been in school. And that is a national mistake that we made. And we are paying for it now because those students are matriculating into college. And we're getting them as dual credit students as well, ones that were in 8th, 9th grade, especially in those impressionable years during 2020. They're now approaching 11th grade, and they're coming to us under the blueprint as a dual credit student.
So the other question I have, how many high school students are attending HCC?
I would say we're roughly, probably 1,600.
About 1,600, that is only anticipated to increase, correct?
I think the number will stay, 1,600 will stay roughly about the same. What I do think will happen is that parents, because this year it wasn't highly advertised, I think. I think parents, when they realize that their children in 11th and 12th grade can come to campus and go and start the college experience there, if those parents have a way to get those students to and from school, to and from the college, they're going to do it. Yeah. And so I believe that our on-campus numbers are going to grow. I think the 1,600 probably remains relatively flat because our enrollment, across WCPS, there's no, if you look over their census, there's no great increase of students. So I think that number stays flat, but I do think the number on campus grows.
And that should take some of the pressure off of school capacity issues for the high school.
Yes, sir.
And then are homeschoolers in the 11th, 12th grade area allowed to participate in that?
No, they're not. Well, they're always allowed to participate in our dual credit program. And so homeschool kids, as mine were, they come to the campus and they participate in dual credit. However, the state does not direct that the local education agencies pay for their tuition and their books and their expenses like they do for kids who go to public school. So children who go to private schools or they're homeschooled, their parents pay, and what we've done is for those students, we have given them the same waiver of tuition that we give to WCPS for their students. So we charge them 75% of the tuition across the board, whether they take 3 credit hours or whether they take 15 credit hours. They get a 25% reduction in tuition. If they're on campus, though, they still have to pay fees and books because those are direct expenses for labs and things like that.
Does the state forbid the county school system from funding that?
I don't know. That would be a question you probably have to ask.
I'll have that for the Dr. Savai. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Dr. Klauber, of the 5,000 student enrollment you'd mentioned, are those all degree-seeking students? Do you have a breakdown of like continuing ed, lifelong learning?
Continuing ed, that's roughly another 5,000 students. I don't even count continuing education in those in that head count.
So 5,000 students, those are all students essentially seeking an associate's degree?
Yes, we serve over 10,000 students a year. Now, that could be someone coming in to take, if you take that large number, that could be someone coming in to take a non-credit beekeeping class, or going on a trip to the tour of the White House at Christmas. All that, those people are all counted. But when you look at the degree-seeking, certificate-seeking students, it's 5,000 students.
Okay.
Other questions?
Thank you so
Good
much.
job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You make our job easier.
I tried.
Next is the Police Accountability Board Annual Report. Morning, Steve.
Morning. Yeah, I'm Steve McCarty, the Chairman of the Police Accountability Board for Washington County, Maryland. And I'll read my report to you. The Washington County Police Accountability Board is adhering to mandates and regulations enacted by the Maryland Legislature and the Washington County Ordinance, which is a lot here. The Washington County Police County Board has been meeting on a regular quarterly basis with the heads of the Washington County law enforcement agencies. Just be mindful, the state agencies are not under Police Accountability Board of Washington County. They're under a state board. So we meet with the police departments in Washington County and the Sheriff's Department. And we meet on a quarterly basis every 4 months, 3 months. In the early part of 2023, all of the 5 members of the Administrative Charging Committee, which is under the umbrella of the Police Accountability Board, received 40 hours of training required by the Maryland Police and Correctional Training Commission. 2 of these members traveled to Cumberland for the training, and 3 of the members, which I'm also a member of that, traveled down to Sykesville, and each one of us received 40 hours of training as required. In October 2023, 1 member of the Police Accountability Board received 16 hours of training from the same place, the Maryland Police and Correctional Training Commission, traveling to Sykesville. She traveled there for 2 days. She received 16 hours of training and serves as a member of the civilian member of the trial board. The Administrative Charging Committee meets on a monthly basis, and since receiving the required training, reviews cases submitted by the law enforcement agencies and issues written determinations on these cases. The Administrative Charging Committee's written determinations were returned to the heads of the law enforcement agencies and the citizen complainant, if applicable, in a timely manner. The Administrative Charge Committee does not hear cases from any of the state law enforcement agencies serving Washington County, as I just mentioned. Recommendations that come to the Police Accountability Board from the Administrative Charge Committee have been shared with the law enforcement agent heads at the quarterly meetings. These recommendations, suggestions did not deal with needed perceived training of the police officers, but suggestions on the investigative formats that each law enforcement agency was using to submit the complainant investigation to the ACC. More of what this means is use a more standard format that other agencies have done, and just helps us put things in an easier context. The Administrative Charge Committee, through the Police Accountability Board, is encouraging all the law enforcement agencies to follow a more standard format and investigative outline, as I just mentioned. And that on the, as far as the Police Accountability Board for Washington County, we have, let me check here, 1, 2. We have 7 members on the Police Accountability Board. And on the members of the Administrative Charge Committee, we have 5 members on the Administrative Charge Committee. And I'm on there, and the chairman of that is sitting behind me here, is Scott Matheny. He's the chairman of the Administrative Charging Committee.
Scott, just a quick question. How would you rank that training you all got with the general consensus of your group? Was it like a 10 being great training, or?
Well, you have to, okay, for the train FARS, the Administrative Charging Committee, that training.
Yes.
We were a group of people from across the state with state's attorneys, local attorneys, some retired police officers, people that have no experience in law enforcement. The training was good, but we also know that across the state of Maryland, there's more concerns and different concerns with the areas they serve. And, but I think the training overall was, the training was good.
Okay.
Yes.
And you, just for everybody listening, Police Accountability Board sends recommendations to the ACC, is that how it works?
Well, the complaint could either come through the county attorney's office or come right into a police department. The police department submits it. I use the term downtown. It'll come downtown to the county attorney's office, and we'll receive that complaint. It can come to us directly, and then we'll submit that complaint to the, what police department it's through, or that police department receives a complaint, they process it, and then that complaint, from a citizen complaint, will come down to the county attorney's office, and then that complaint comes eventually before us, and we will, after it's investigated, assuming the police department has it, and they'll submit it, they've done their investigation, then it comes before the Administrative Charge Committee, and that's when the Administrative Charge Committee begins their work. And it's a process that is due diligence. We look at the body cameras, all the body camera footage, and we look at that and we will discuss it, and we do due diligence, and that it's something that we take very serious.
Now, how many you think you've had, just approximately?
Referred to my friend.
We've had probably 22 cases from HPD, and we've had 8 from the Sheriff's Department,
Okay.
and 1 from the college.
So you got plenty to do.
And,
Yes.
right, and we had one from Hancock as well, and you understand that these complaints that come in it's not egregious activity, but there's, you heard the testimony from the chief of Hagerstown Police Department. What we're seeing with our law enforcement, and I'll say that the law enforcement in Washington County, these police officers are very professional, very professional. They just, watching the body cameras and what they take in and how they respond. But what we're seeing with that is that they're very professional, and some of these complaints that come in is maybe the public not understanding the concept. I will tell you, one example of a police officer was very professional. The person that was wanted in several jurisdictions or warrants, very professional with this person, and they came in about a week later and complained that the handcuffs were too tight. And we reviewed that, and the police officer was very professional, followed the departmental policy of that police department, and was very professional with it, and things like that. And then another complaint, and then there's some we haven't made decisions on, but there's another one they just don't understand. It was a parking complaint. Came into the police department in this county. A parking complaint came in, and the officer did not respond immediately. And it was a complaint against the whole department. I think it was an hour and a half before they responded to a parking complaint because it was in the city. Officers had a serious calls to handle. They had to take the serious calls, and they got there an hour and a half later, and the complaint came in that they didn't come right away. So we see those, and of course, we do take due diligence on some other things we've seen, and we've made the decisions on that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions? Thanks for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Again,
guys.
I pray for our police officers every day, and we,
Amen.
and I'd like to just say this in my closing, trying to find a police officer to work now. Our police officers are constantly being audited by video camera, and it's hard to take and find police officers who want to do the job. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Next item is approval of zoning map amendment RZ 23-4007.
Commissioners, if you recall, at our last meeting, there was a public hearing on this rezoning case, RZ 23-007, regarding property that is currently zoned agricultural rural, and with a request that that be changed to agricultural rural with a historical preservation district overlay. The property is at 13215 Smithsburg Pike, Smithsburg, Maryland. After the public hearing concluded, the commissioners reached a consensus to approve the requested rezoning. The proposed decision with the necessary findings of fact has been proposed by the county attorney's office, and it would be appropriate to adopt the decision and the findings of fact, as well as the ordinance to amend the zoning map to grant the requested rezoning in RZ 23-007.
Yeah, so you're looking for a motion from the, yeah.
Yep.
Done motion to seek approval of the request to rezone the applicant's property agricultural rural to agricultural rural with historic preservation overlay.
Second.
A motion second, 2 seconds. All in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Aye, Bo.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is update to county policy, utility construction within county public right-of-ways. Good morning, gentlemen.
Greg Hartrett, Director of Permits and Inspections. The discussion is utility permits are issued by the permits office, including conditions of work during permit plan review, and are tracked in the field by the inspections office. Update to the policy include revisions to definitions, adding micro trenching as an acceptable method of utility work. Recommends for third-party inspections for projects with multiple crews working at the same time, and clarification of mitigation requirements, including resurfacing the road based on pavement condition index.
This is pretty much an answer to our last meeting on this, and it's pretty much all your red line revisions and everything have addressed what we, is there anything major in there that we might want to know about that you've had afterthoughts on?
I just want to add that after the comments from the last meeting, we did add some language to provide for a list of acceptable vendors, and that the permittee shall be solely responsible for payment of all expenses related to work performed by a third-party inspector. That was based on the comments from the last meeting.
And currently, just to let you know, on that vendor list, I have 3 local engineering companies that are, have been vetted. Scott and I have looked through their statement of qualifications and so forth, and they're 3 local engineering companies.
Motion?
I'd motion to approve.
Second. Ready to vote? Motion is second on the floor. All in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. 5-0. Thank you,
Thank you.
gentlemen. Good move.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Next item is 2024 Senator Amos funding distribution.
Morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
David Hayes, Director of Emergency Services. We're here today looking for a motion to accept the recommendations of the Director of Emergency Services authorizing the Division of Emergency Services to make notification of the grant award from the FY 2024 William H. Amos Fire Rescue Ambulance Fund subsidy is outlined in the attached document. Total year fiscal funding for 2024 is $336,233. The state of Maryland distributes an annual payment to each county for support of local fire and rescue operations. The county, in turn, makes notification of the funding to the eligible volunteer fire and rescue corporations. Financial accountability and reported are handled within the Division of Emergency Services and the Department of Budget and Finance. The county filing a financial report with the state on an annual basis. Senator Amos Fire Rescue Ambulance Fund is authorized within the Public Safety article of the Annotated Code of Maryland. The Maryland Emergency Management Agency is responsible for the program's delivery. Fiscal impact: any loss of funding will result in a reduction of capital equipment funding and expenditures that are available to the independent fire and EMS companies. And we have concurrences from myself and the Chief Financial Officer. The alternatives are not applicable, and the attachments, as indicated, are in the fiscal year 2024 distribution matrix. And just for a real quick summation, each of the fire and rescue companies would receive $12,932, and the city of Hagerstown would receive the allocation for the 6 volunteer companies inside the corporate limits of Hagerstown, and the city of Hagerstown would receive $77,593. That is consistent with previous past 15 entire 8 years I've been director.
Comments, thoughts?
Dave, how does this amount compare to previous year allotments?
It's usually within $500 or $600. There's been a time it's went up or down 1,000, but most of them change, has been within the $500 or $600 range. I've never seen anything higher than 13,500.
Okay. Do you know what triggers at the state level an increase in this funding, or is it kind of set in stone?
I do not know that. I'm sure it's a legislative action, but I don't know what the mechanics are of that.
Okay.
We're the conduit for the funds going directly to the city? In other words,
Yes.
it doesn't go straight, or it doesn't go directly to the city, it comes through the county.
Correct, and how this is distributed is not in the form of a blank check. It requires an expenditure and then a reimbursement request. So as an example, historically, the city of Hagerstown has handled their request for disbursement through an apparatus payment. They'll make a payment, a larger payment on an apparatus. They'll send that over to Budget and Finance for the, in this case, $77,593, and then the county will in turn issue that check. And then the volunteer corporations likewise will have to do the same. They'll have to create an expenditure that is in a qualified category, and then they'll make a request through Budget and Finance for reimbursement for that.
Okay. Any
Motion
other
to
questions? Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second on the floor to approve as submitted. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thanks, Dave. Next item is intergovernmental cooperative purchase in INTG 23-0138, fire hoses and accessories for Division of Emergency Services.
Good morning, Rick Curry, Director of Purchasing. So before you is intergovernment cooperative purchase, INTG 23-0138, fire hose and accessories for Division of Emergency Services. The recommended motion is authorized by resolution, the approval for the procurement of fire hose and accessory for Division of Emergency Services from Whitmire Public Safety Group Incorporated of Coatesville, Maryland, at the contracted prices based on the contract awarded by Montgomery County, Maryland, contract number 1114636, for the total sum and amount of $92,392.32. As you can see in the ARF, there are a number of items to be purchased. And the Code of Public Law does allow for this board to procure goods and services that another entity awarded the contract, as long as we follow the contract in accordance with the way it was awarded. And there are administrative savings by not going through the procurement process in doing so. We do have funds listed for this procurement, an amount of $116,010. We have concurrence, and also we have the quotes attached from the vendor. Are there any questions?
No, I'm just gonna ask a curious question. I'm just reading this, like a Mercedes Kraken white 1.5 by 50 fire hoses, discounted at $198, and you're buying 24 of them. Is that what I'm reading, like the second one down? Yeah.
For the 1.5, each section is 50 foot. So 24 times 50, and then the complement of hose will be spread out into the 3 reserve engines.
Okay, yeah, just curious question. So, motion to approve.
Second. Motion is second on the floor. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Next item is intergovernmental cooperative purchase 23-0136, 5 Fisher stainless Extreme V 8.5 foot truck plows for the highway department.
Good morning, Brandy Nagelbauer in the Purchasing Department.
Zane Rowell, Deputy Director of Highways.
The first recommendation I have for you this morning is the intergovernmental cooperative purchase, INTG 23-0136, 5 Fisher stainless extreme truck plows for the Highway Department. Move to authorize by resolution for the Highway Department to purchase 5 Fisher stainless extreme truck plows from Rippian Equipment out of Frederick, Maryland, for a total cost of $53,204.50, and to utilize another jurisdiction's contract that was awarded by Sourcewell to Fisher Engineering. The Highway Department is requesting the purchase of these 5 plows to upfit the 5 new pickup trucks that were purchased in August of 2023. And those trucks were replaced per the county's vehicle equipment usage guidelines. The Code of Public Law of Washington County, Maryland provides that the Board of County Commissioners may procure goods and services through a contract entered into by another government entity as long as we abide by the same terms and conditions. There is a cost savings by doing this due to the economies of scale the contract has leveraged. There are available funds in the capital improvement budget for this purchase.
Thoughts?
Motion to approve.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor to approve as submitted. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Next item is intergovernmental cooperative purchase 23-0135, Microsoft Office 365 licensing.
Randy Nagelbauer in the Purchasing Department. The next recommendation after this is the Intergovernmental Cooperative Purchase, INTG 23-0135, Microsoft Office 365 licensing. Move to authorize by resolution for the approval for the procurement of the licensing agreement for a total sum of $982,124.46, and this is over a 3-year period from Software House International out of Somerset, New Jersey, based on a pricing structure set forth by the state of Maryland. The Code of Law of Washington County, Maryland provides that the county may enter into a contract awarded by another jurisdiction as long as we abide by the same terms and conditions. There is a cost savings through the economies of scale leveraged. The county entered into a 36-month agreement on December 1st, 2023. The coverage term runs from December 1st, 2023 through November 30th, 2024, with 2 additional 1-year periods. The department will have to budget for years 2 and 3. Office 365 suite products offered supply the county with phone, email services, document editing software, cloud storage for documents, and data used all throughout the county. The Washington County Information Systems is requesting this purchase to renew the licensing contract for continued years of service. Now, this pricing can fluctuate yearly due to additions or deletions per requirements of the county. Funding is available in the department's operating budget for this purchase.
Recommend approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Ready to vote? All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. 5-0. Thank you. Next item is sole source procurement, 1656 ESRI cloud model of geographic information software enterprise license agreement.
Randy Nagelbauer in the Purchasing Department. The last recommendation after you today is the sole source procurement, PUR 1656 ESRI cloud model of geographic information software enterprise licensing agreement. Move to authorize the sole source procurement of an enterprise license agreement for the use of the Washington County Department of Information Technologies for a sum for year 2 of $74,600 from Environmental Systems Research Institute out of Redlands, California. Now, the original amount that I submitted was $74,000. We got an updated quote on the 5th of January that raised it by $600 for an app to be used by county staff for the software. That's the reason for the increase to my ARF. The ESRI system is a software that drives all GIS-related operations for all county departments. It provides mapping and planning data essential to many aspects of public works and the citizens of Washington County. The Department of Information Technology wishes to apply sections 1-106.2A1 and 2 of the Code of Local Public Laws of Washington County, Maryland, to the purchase requested. This section states that a sole source procurement is authorized and permissible when only one source exists, and that is the case in the software. This request requires 4 out of 5 commissioners' approval. There is funding available in the department's operating budget for this purchase.
One, I'd just like to say that this is much lower than I used to pay at the University of South Florida for these capabilities. So prices come down, I guess.
We changed our subscription model last year, and they gave us an onboarding rate that increases year over year. So next year it's going to be lower.
It's still considerably less than a lot of others are paying for similar. So I recommend approval.
Motion is second on the floor. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Very good. Anything else under open session?
Motion to go in closed session? Second.
Okay. We'll take a 3-minute recess and we'll go into closed session.